are in need of you, in need of your word. And I pray, may the word of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your eyes, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. When I first read this text last week, I was astonished because I felt the lectionary text, this text, described the situations of many people suffering from the wildfire. All the beautiful buildings and the houses, years of labor and endeavor are lost and burned to the ground. They became piles of ashes. And people are crying because of the loss of their house, property, and even the very lives of their loved ones. Last Thursday morning, I got an alert saying schools are closed because of the poor air condition. On the way to church that morning, I found the death toll raised up to 56 and missing toll 297 at that time. But now the death toll is 71 and the missing 1,300. Surely we are witnessing the deadliest wildfire in California's history and hearing the stories of people literally running for their lives. What a coincidence or divine intervention for us to encounter today's text, where Jesus talks about the destruction of the temple and signs of the end times. And I'm not saying this fire will mark the end of end time. No, not at all. I recall back in 2011, a pastor giving his talk online through YouTube, in which he connected tsunami in Japan to the signs of the end time. And he was telling us like, you know what guys, this is what I've been talking about. I'm not gonna go that far, okay? I'm not gonna go that far because the wildfire like this has happened before and will happen more often due to the climate change. It will happen, something like this. So today's text gives Jesus' last teaching in the temple or around the temple. As he finishes his teaching in the temple with the widow's offering, which he saw last Sunday, he leaves the temple. Then one of his disciples says, we don't know who, but he says, look at these massive stones. What an amazing building it is. Yes, it was the Jerusalem temple at the time, which the Herod the Great started his renovation, was a spectacle at the time. It was intended to be 1,600 feet wide by 900 feet broad by 9 stories high at that time, with walls up to 16 feet thick, but had never been finished. It was gigantic. Could have been a wonder of the world if it had survived, I would say. It was gigantic. It was a spectacle for the eyes of the people at that time. To his disciples who are saying like oohs and ahs as they were looking at those massive construction building, at the spectacle of the temple, Jesus retorts like, do you see all these buildings? And they say, yes, sir. Aren't they great? Then he says, you know what? Everything will be thrown down. Not one stone will be left upon another. And what a bummer. What a bummer. He just dampened their spirit. Surprised and anxious, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked Jesus privately, as Jesus was looking at the temple on the Mount Olive opposite the temple, tell us, when will these things happen? What are the signs? Then Jesus says, there will be rumors of war, and nations fighting against nations. There will be earthquakes and famines. And he's saying, it'll be a mess. Guess what happens? It'll be a mess. It'll be a chaos. As I was preparing this sermon, I was looking outside the window, and I couldn't see the sun. Remember? The sky was full of smoke. It reminded me of the Bible verse, what Jesus says. He said, the sun will be dark. The sun will be dark. And it was happening right in front of my eyes. As mysterious it can be, or using our technical term, as apocalyptic it can sound, Jesus' teaching on the temple here actually talks about the historical event that happened later, the first Jewish-Roman war that took place in 1606 through 73 CE, in which the Roman military sieged the city of Jerusalem and destroyed the temple, laying everything to waste. The image that came to my mind when I was reading this text, the destruction of the temple, the signs of end times. The image that came to my mind was not people fighting in the battlefield, but people fleeing, running for their lives because of the war, earthquake, and famine. Because of what I saw in newspapers and in people's videos about the recent wildfire. And let me share with you a story from San Francisco Tribune that describes the horrors of the campfire. When the fire struck, Lou, it's a person's name, Lou became concerned. Her elderly dad, Boss, was on a designated list stating that he needed a medical evacuation if disaster hit. But no one showed up to save him, Lou said. Instead, Bert, Lou's stepbrother, rushed to home to help. Farsi's neighbor, Damon Powell, was on his way home from work when the flame moved into town. He rushed to his home to gather up his grandmother and bang on his next door neighbor's home where Bert was already inside. I said, "Look guys, we have to get out of here," he said. At that point, I'm telling Andrew, "Let's get out of here," as Andrew is pulling out the wheelchair and I'm moving stuff out of the way. Boss didn't want to live, Lou's elderly father. Bert and Paul pleaded with him as the flames began to devour trees and bush on Edgewood Lane. At the far end of the dead-end street, several people burned to death, trapped in their cars. Standing inside the home, Powell got a desperate call from his girlfriend who was in another part of town. She basically said, I'm not gonna make it. I love you." He said, "I have to go." So I heard them and said I love them and grabbed my grandma and left. Flames lit the sides of his car and the sky turned to red darkness as he drove away, he said. Paul put blankets and sweaters over his grandmother to protect her from the heat in the agonizingly slow drive to find his girlfriend and get out of town. Paul found his girlfriend and they made it out safely, but back on Edgewood, things were becoming hopeless. Bert apparently persuaded Boss to get in the wheelchair and got him outside. They were basically trapped, Lou said. "My dad is a big guy. My stepbrother, Bert, is a big guy. From some miracle, he got him into a wheelchair and to the van, and that's where they found him. Boss's dog, Venice, his longtime companion, died at his side, a detective told Lou that her father was burned on one side. Everything is gone, Lou said. The weight of that just started to hit me. I cannot imagine what it's like for other people going through the same thing. Before reading this article, sitting in the Bay Area, I wanted the smoke to be gone and people out there to remain safe. And that was it. I was basically counting days. How many days this smoke will last. And I was counting days while people were running for their lives. I was looking for a mask while people were looking for shelter and missing people. Smoke is really bad today, huh? A friend of mine passing by said, I responded, we need to pray. While walking toward the library, because that's all I could do, that's all I sin could do at the time, just pray. Then my phone began vibrating with instant text messages, one after another, as I sat on the chair. It was a group chat room in which Korean United Methodist pastors communicated. The story of a retired pastor who lost his house because of the campfire brought their minds and hearts together. One pastor said, I will give $100. Then another said, me too, I'll give $100. One after another, they expressed their willingness to share. Some used Venmo or mobile app, some used Jelly, another app, some used PayPal, some sent checks. It was all Wednesday afternoon and Thursday morning until the representative of the Korean University pastors in this area visited his family, the retired pastor whose house was lost, and delivered money, $2,700 in total, beside $1,000 from a local church. It was that moment I witnessed to another group of people running for life. Not from the blazing fire and flames, but to the people who came out of the fire. With little they had, they were saving the life of one family who lost everything because of fire. Everybody is running for something, right? Some running for fame, some running for money, and some running for power. Everybody is running for something, including you and I. This wildfire asks us to stop, pause a little bit, and think about what we are running for, what we are chasing after. It questions us, are they really worth running for? Because there are people out there literally running for their lives. At the end of his talk today, Jesus says, you know what, guys? It's just a beginning. It's just a beginning. These are the beginnings of the birth pangs. True. Thinking of the climate change, things will get easily worse, not better. The sun will be darkened, and people may be constantly running for their lives. But I hope and pray there will be another group of people running for their lives with little they have, in order to share their love and care with those impacted by those disasters. And I pray I pray, we join them. We join them to give, to save, and to serve, so that in so doing, God will bring His salvation to His people.